Okay, so far what we're saying, which, again, we're going to see more, that there's more to it, but so far we say that biblically the term is Nachri, or Ben Nechar, which means any non-Jew, as a rule. And in rabbinic literature it would be Goy, or for the woman Goya, and those are basically the terms, and therefore the Chachamim prefer to use the word Goy, and Goy, which originally biblically means nation, including a Jewish nation. It doesn't mean a non-Jew, and it doesn't mean an individual human being, but in rabbinic literature, throughout the Mishnah, the Talmud, etc., Goy is a term reserved for a non-Jew, even for an individual. Fine. And all the other terms that we use basically are because of the censorship. That's what he says so far. Continuing on the second paragraph on page Reish Pei Zayin 287. Af bizman shekoydem matan Torah. Even in the time prior to the giving of the Torah, the revelation of Sinai, Shagam Yisrael lo yotz michlal b'nei Noach, when the Jewish people, the Israelites, as of yet at that point, were not outside of the category of Bnei Noach. They were technically and legally considered Bnei Noach, as we've discussed many times. B'negel mitzvahs v'isurim shemimatan Torah, with regards to the mitzvahs, the commandments, and the prohibitions of Matan Torah. Before the giving of the Torah, the Jews were all Bnei Noach. Nikru b'nei Adam b'nigud liYisrael b'shem Goy. Even there, human beings were called Goy, as opposed to Yisrael. K'moi, for example, Goy shikas Yisrael chayav misa shenemar v'yachas hamitzri. We say that there's a following halacha of after Matan Torah, after the giving of the Torah. A Goy is what it says. That's how Chazal say it, and that's how the Rambam, in the correct uncensored version, also says it. A Goy that smote a Yisrael, a Jew, is chayv misa, is liable for the death penalty. And what is the proof text from the Chumash? Vayach es hamitzri, that Moses killed the Mitzri.
Which is out of the scope of Bnei Noach, then.
And that means to say that it's a ben, right. So there we also find that we're calling Yisrael and the other people, as opposed to Yisrael, we're calling them Goy or Goyim. Based in Shel Shem, another example, the court of Shem, Shem the son of Noach, who is of course the
Ben Noach.
That's right. He is literally a Ben Noach. Shem, who is the forerunner, who is the ancestor of Avraham, of the Jewish nation. So he had a beis din. Him and his court, Gazru, they made a decree, al znus, of the promiscuity or of prostitution or forbidden marriage, Bas Yisrael im Goy. Of having relations, of a Bas Yisrael, the daughter of a Jew, a female member of the Jewish people, with a Goy. That's what it says.
Really?
Yeah. I see this is all pre-Matan Torah, so there is no Yisrael. We're all Bnei Noach.
They did recognize Yisrael.
Yes. Shenemar. What's the proof text to this? Hoitziyu avasi saref. Take her out and burn her, which is referring to the story of Yehuda and Tamar. So we've mentioned this story in a previous class. Basically, without going through all the details, Yehuda unknowingly had relations with an unmarried woman, and she was his twice daughter-in-law, but at the time she was not. Yehuda had 3 sons. She married the first one, he died. She married the second one, which is Yibum, he died. And then Yehuda told her to go home and wait. During this waiting period, Yehuda went there, and she disguised herself as a harlot, and Yehuda had relations with her. And then, lo and behold, she became pregnant. So when news came to Yehuda that she was pregnant, he says, take her out and burn her. And presumably, what was the reason for that ruling was she was the daughter or a descendant of Shem, which means he considered her to be Jewish.
Oh, no.
Because she's from Shem.
She's from Shem.
So
But
there, well, he's considering Shem and Aver to all be not Bnei Noach.
Oh,
that's the point.
Interesting.
Yeah, Avraham, you can't.
Well, she was the daughter of a priest.
Of a Jewish priest.
Well, a priest.
Okay. Well, that's why. Right. That's why burn her as opposed to.
Yeah. So, I mean, that's before the priesthood went to the Israel, and then the
Right.
Israel to Levi, and the
Right.
Levi
Right.
to
Right. So
Kohen.
right. But the point is here that we see a recognition.
And burning would be hot lead or hot.
Yeah. Which is for the Bas Kohen, the daughter of a priest, because she's the daughter of Shem. So the whole thing over here is that even pre-Matan Torah, when we know that they had a din of Bnei Noach, yet we find that there's this
There is a
biblical
din.
recognition of making a distinction and saying, no, that there's a... But again, the point we want to bring out is the language that Chazal are using.
Maybe others saw, maybe outside of Shem's din, like for instance, it says Avraham had a din of Ben Noach.
Right.
Maybe that's referring to other non-Jews viewing him as a Ben Noach, but Shem's based in saw him as a Yisrael.
Well, the point is that we're saying that Shem and his Beis Din made a gezerah, they made a decree of znus, forbidding prostitution. For who? Bas Yisrael im goy. So they're calling...
They do have a concept of goy.
So they're calling it right. They're saying Bas Yisrael as versus a goy. Where at that point, everybody is the same. You want to use the later rabbinic terminology, so say everybody is a goy. How could you say a Bas Yisrael and a goy? That means that they're making a distinction already before Matan Torah.
And where was this? Where's he actually quoting from?
Yeah, where's the source for that statement?
Yeah, this based in of Shem. Sorry, I'm just really.
Avodah Zarah, 36b.
No, I don't have that one yet. Interesting. I really don't have that in a few months.
Umatzinu, and we find Shalom Dudin Shel Goy Miloit. That we find that we learn out the ruling, the halachic status, the law of a goy from Lot. Lot, which was Avraham's nephew. Avaloi me Esav, but we don't learn it out from Esav, which was Yaakov's twin. Shema Yisrael Mumer Dinoi Acher. Why? Because again, to quote the language of the rabbis in the Talmud, because perhaps a Yisrael Mumar, a Jew that converted out or that denounced his Judaism, that may be different. So Esav may have been, considered by the Gemara, a Yisrael Mumar, a Jew that denounces his Judaism,
Oh, Mumar.
as opposed to Lot.
Isn't that English translation renegade? Or renege?
Renegade?
Renegade.
This renegade?
I don't know.
That's what they usually translate in English
Sounds like
renegade,
so.
but I never
Sounds like
knew
that.
the
yeah.
term meaning of renegade other than a song.
Mumar.
I thought a Mumar was somebody.
Can you pass me the real thick
No, it's a Mumar.
Jastro,
That's a Mumar.
the dictionary? Where is that?
That's who?
Yes, right. Oh, good. Okay. Let's see. Mumar. The truth is, a lot of versions it really should say Meshumad. That's another thing of the censorship. That many of them claim that wherever it says Mumar, it's really Meshumad.
Mazeh.
Same idea. Someone who
But isn't
denounces,
like,
converts out.
but they also like Mumars like they use an example of like a yid that he doesn't eat kosher because it's not really just if it was accessible to him he would, but he doesn't make it a point.
No, so there's a mumar l'te'oven and a mumar l'hachis. A mumar means someone who categorically is denouncing.
Yeah.
So if you just say mumar, you don't specify, then that means the whole Torah. He doesn't keep the whole Torah. But if it's a mumar to a specific thing, then that means he rejects that mitzvah.
And he actually verbally rejects it or something like that. It's not just he doesn't do it.
Well, there's a mumar l'te'oven, which means that he's doing it not out of spite, but just out of appetite. Some people say that the reason why why the Jew is eating pork is not because he categorically disagrees with the laws of kosher. He just has an appetite, yeah. Or the same thing why he marries non-Jewish women is not because he
Catholic
categorically...
women.
Huh?
It's always Catholic women.
Oh, really?
Yeah. I don't know, you ever noticed that?
I think I have noticed that, yeah.
Mumar, exchanged, converted, apostate, an open opponent of Jewish law, non-conformist,
Those are all really different.
even a non-observant Israelite. Mishumad is the other one. A rebel against the entire law. Accused of idolatry. Okay, so it's basically, literally the word means exchanged, like you find in Chumash. You can't exchange one animal for another if you designated it to be a sacrifice. So the word there, that's the same root. So it's someone who converted out of Judaism or an apostate. What word did you say? Renegade?
Renegade, or I think it's like pronounced R-E-N-E-G.
Yeah, I just remember the Rambam listing them, and they were all
Yeah.
like there's different kinds. Like Rabbi Turin said, there's some out of appetite, and some that like they logically say they disagree, and they go the ways of the Greeks and stuff. And
What about the song by the Sticks? By Sticks, it was Renegade.
All right.
yeah.
Next, Kol HaGoyim Nikaru Arelim. All of the non-Jews are referred to as Arelim, which literally means uncircumcised. V'afilu Amulim Shebahem. And even the circumcised amongst them, if he's not Jewish, he's called an Arel, even though literally he's not. She'ein Arla Kroi Elo Lishmam. Because Arla is a term used for them. Arla means the covering foreskin. Shenemar, Kichol HaGoyim Arelim, because we have a verse in Jeremiah 9, verse 25, which says, all the Goyim, interesting. So there we do have a verse in the Tanakh, and it's saying Goyim, and it means the nations of the world, not the Jews. It says, Kichol HaGoyim Arelim.
He's quoting Nadar in there too.
Nadarim quotes this. Yeah. So it says as follows. Let's go back one verse. Yirmiyahu 9, verse 24. Hine yomim boimim Hashem. Behold, days are coming, saith Hashem. Ufakadti al kol mul be'orla. When I shall deal with everyone who is circumcised for his uncircumcision. Then it continues, next verse. Hal Mitzrayim val Yehuda, with Egypt, with Judah. Val Edom, with Edom. Val Bnei Ammon, val Moav, with the children of Ammon and with Moav. Val Kol Kitzutzei Feah, and with all those who dwell in the remotest corners of the wilderness. That's how they translate it. Hayeshim Bamidbar. Kichol Hagoyim Areilim, for all the nations are uncircumcised. The whole Beis Yisrael are leilev, and the house of Israel is uncircumcised heart. So the Jewish people, which are, in other words, Arelim is a terminology used for all the goyim, which means all the nations excluding the Jews. The Jewish people, you have to specify that you mean uncircumcised of the heart, but otherwise, just to call them uncircumcised, that means all goyim, even the ones that actually physically had a circumcision.
What's he say? What does he say about Israel in the heart? I mean, I remember Jeremiah was saying there's two circumcisions.
So he's saying kol basis of Arele days. All of the children of Israel, the house of Israel, are uncircumcised of heart.
That was big. That was Jeremiah's big thing.
So, Arelim is a term used for the non-Jews. V'omer, another verse. Haplishti ha'arel hazeh. That's going back to Goliath, I believe, in Shmuel 1, Samuel 1, chapter 17, verse 26. It says this, uncircumcised plishti. V'omer, and then there's another verse, and this is in Shmuel Beis, chapter 1, verse 20. And this is brought down in the Mishnah Nedarim. Pentismachna b'nois plishtim, lest the daughters of plishtim rejoice. Pentaloizna b'nois ho'arelim, lest the daughters of the uncircumcised be happy. So we find that they're called arelim. V'lochin, and therefore, practically speaking, hanoider hanamin ha'arelim, if a Jew makes a vow that he will not derive any benefit from the arelim, from the uncircumcised, he is forbidden to derive any benefit from the circumcised of the nations of the world. And if somebody makes a vow that he will not derive any benefit from the circumcised, then he is permitted to derive benefit even from the circumcised non-Jews. In other words, the terminology arel and mulim is clearly not to be taken necessarily literally, did they have that piece of foreskin removed or not, but rather it's a term for the Jews as versus for the non-Jews. So every Jew is called a mahul, the mulim, and every non-Jew is called an arel, the arelim.
I wonder why I kind of see his point, but at the same time, he's bringing all that from Nedarim, and it's talking about just oaths, really.
Okay. But why is that the law by oaths?
Yeah.
Because categorically, arelim are all non-Jews, even women. And mulim are all Jews, even Jewish women. That's exactly the point. Mm-hmm. It's not like it's some far-fetched specific law which is only for Nedarim. That's where you find it brought out on a practical level.
Yeah, he's using Jeremiah as the verse.
Right. Oh no, then he brings down in footnote 26 to see the Ran in Nedarim why it's necessary to bring the 3 verses to prove the point. We brought down 3 very different verses. So he discusses there why it's necessary to have 3 verses. Why isn't one sufficient?
Oh, really?
Yeah. For that, you need to look up the Ran in Nedarim 31b.
So is the Ran in the out footnotes in the Talmud there?
Actually, Nedarim is a unique masechta, a unique tractate, where the commentary of the Ran is right there on the page, as Rashi is. And
it's unusual, right?
When I first learned it, when I was a youngster in yeshiva, the way we were taught was that you actually don't even learn the Rashi. That the Rashi, either it's one of those places where they're not certain if it really is Rashi or how accurate it is. It's printed there on the page, but normally when you learn Talmud, you can't learn it without Rashi. Mm-hmm. That's what but here in Nedarim, what takes the place of Rashi is the Ran.
Really?
The Ran is much longer, very extensive, but it's very clear. Just his style is very lengthy.
And do you remember if the Ran's commentary on 31 is right there on 31?
Of course, I don't have to remember that. It is. Mm-hmm. You're saying this commentary, this explanation of why you need 3 verses?
Yeah, yeah.
Oh, that I don't remember offhand.
Okay, because I know, I remember you saying that sometimes the commentaries get pushed off the page.
Oh, no. In Nedarim, it doesn't work like that. No. The Ran is right where he belongs.
Okay.
And that's why the format of the page is, in many pages, very few lines of the actual text, and the Ran is huge, and he takes up most of the page.
Interesting.
Yeah, that's how Nedarim goes.
And is it called does he have a title for his commentaries, or just called the Ran?
Ran.
Really, Ran.
Right. Yeah, it's very, very long. Yeah. The first time I learned it was in 1979. So it's a long time ago.
Did you go through the whole Talmud then, or is it just...
that year I did track it in Nedarim.
That year, interesting.
I'm sorry. No, 1980. 1980.
What month?
It took us most of the school year. Yeah, we were doing Nedarim. Okay. last 3 lines on Reish Pei Zayin, on the right-hand column. Yesh me Rishonim shekosav. So now, there's amongst the Rishonim, which would be the earlier commentaries, such as the Ran and Rashi and Rambam and Meiri and all those. So there are amongst the Rishonim, such as the Meiri, which write as follows. Shaloi nemar stam goy batalmud, that whenever the Talmud, the Mishnah or the Talmud uses the terminology goy by itself, stam, just plain simple goy, is not used, elo al ha'amim ha'kedumim, it's only referring to the ancient nations, she'enum gedurim benimusim vedos, that they are not, they don't behave and in various different, in a civilized way, they don't have the civil manners or any type of governing laws. And they're the ones that didn't keep the 7 mitzvahs. So those ancient nations that weren't adhering to the 7 noyachide commandments are called goy.
Who quoted that?
This is going to be the Meiri, actually. But those that are categorically confined by ways of law, and they worship Hashem in some way, although their belief is very far from the Jewish faith,
like Shituf or something like that, maybe.
They're not included in all those things that Chazal say about Goy and Goyim. But on the contrary, for certain things, they actually legally are absolutely like a complete Jew without any distinction. That would be the whole article that we had.
Din Yisrael in the 7
Right.
or something like that. Oh,
Right.
But is that the Meiri?
Meir and Bava Kama.
Baba Kama, yeah.
And then he tells us to see the Chasam Sofer.
On Sanhedrin 56.
Well, it's a response of the Chasam Sofer,
Oh.
brought down in Hateres Chachomim and Choshen Mishpat. But that would probably be a lot, if I recall, the article by Rabban Soloveitchik in Oidei Sepinichai,
Yeah, he brings
that
that in.
it could be that a lot of it is based on this Meiri. Yeah, so the Meiri says whenever Chazal are talking about Goy, a lot of that is only the ancient ones that were not keeping the Sheva Mitzvahs, but nowadays most people are civilized, most nations are civilized, most individuals are, and therefore as far as certain things are concerned, the legal status is like a Yisrael Gomer, an absolute Jew, without any distinction.
That's pretty. That's a pretty strong.
Yeah. The Yesh shenemru dvarim al goy stam, and then there are certain things which are said about a goy. Ve'ena kavana elo al goy oived avodah zara. But whenever they say that, even though they use the term goy without explaining, they mean an idolatrous goy.
That's Rabbi Eliezer from getting 45. Right?
I don't recall.
Oh yeah, he's talking about the fill-in. What do you do when you find a goy who has to fill in? And you gotta buy it from. Well, I don't know if you have to buy it from him, but you gotta buy it from him at a normal price, and you should burn it. And why do you burn it? He says because you assume goy's intentions are for idolatry.
K'moi, for example, be'isur hana'a shel stam yenam shekosvu rishon. Now, okay, we have the concept of wine. Wine which is not mevushal, not cooked. So that would be called stam yenam. You have yain nesech, which is a big prohibition. Yain nesech means wine which was used as a libation for an idolatrous sacrifice.
It's called yain nesach.
Nesech, yeah.
Oh.
Just like in the Torah when it speaks about the libation to Hashem when you bring a sacrifice, it's called nisuch or nesech, to pour. So to lahavdil, if the idolaters are using it, it's called yain nesech.
Interesting.
So yain nesech is big time forbidden for a Jew to not only drink but even to derive any benefit from. But then you have stam yenam. Stam yenam means wine of a non-Jew that we don't know to be idolatrous. Okay? So what status does that have? So you're not allowed to, a Jew can't derive pleasure from that wine, even though I don't know that he prepared it or that he poured that wine for a sacrifice. So some Rishonim write as follows. Kol mokim shenemar goy stam, wherever it just says the word plain goy. Harei the oived avodah zara, that is referring to one that we know to be an idolater.
Does he quote the Rambam there?
Yes.
Okay. Does he quote anybody else?
No. He says Rambam from Acholas Asuris,
11:8.
11.8. Very good.
I was hoping he'd bring something else in. But the Rambam also talks about two things. There, you can benefit from it, and you can. There were two things at the Rambam: benefiting from it, and maybe actually drinking it.
Yes.
Like you could sell it, or you could drink it.
Right.
And
So there it's only if he's an idolater. The yesh shekosvu, and then there are others that write shekosvu kein af bigzeiros acheros shegozru chachamim begoyim. Even when it comes to other decrees that the chachamim decreed against goyim. So some say she'ein hakavana lebegoy eved avodah zara, that it only applies to an idolatrous goy. But anyone that we know to be one who's not an idolatrous guy, he does not believe or worship anything other than Hashem, then those decrees never apply to him.
so it's like an opt-in, opt-out type thing.
Even though he never accepted upon himself to become a ger toishav.
That's amazing. Who does he quote that from?
Hold on, one more line.
Sorry,
And as far as giving him sustenance, and to support him, it's only as far as lachayoisoi does it make a difference whether he formally accepts in front of a Beis Din and becomes a ger toishav. But other than that, he has the same legal status as what we would call a ger toishav, which means he's not a goy, and all the decrees that the Chachamim said that goy this, goy that, don't apply to that goy.
That's my thing. I wonder.
And that he quotes the Rashba.
Oh, I never heard this before. Or maybe I never have. I don't know. The Rashba.
Yep. Which means that a lot of these decrees.
The Rashba was Ritva's teacher.
Okay.
And the Ramban, he's a student of the Ramban, I think.
Who the Ramban is a student of?
The Rambam was a teacher of, I think, the Rashba. Rabbi Avraham ben Ashvili, something like that.
Rashba is a Shlomo ben Aderes.
Different guy, I think.
Who did you say?
Rabbi Avraham ben Ashvili.
So you need to find this Rashba.
Okay.
That's footnote 31 here.
On Rashba on.
Well, I think the name of the sefer is Teiras Habayis Ha'aroich. Teiras Habayis Ha'aroich, if I deciphered the acronym correctly. I think that's the name of the Rashba sefer. And the Ha'aroich, the long law of the house. Teiras Habayis Ha'aroich.
Kind of like the
Shulchan Aruch?
Aruch.
No, different word.
Different.
That's with an ayin, that's with an aleph.
Aleph.
Totally different root.
So this is with an olive.
Aleph. Aroich, which
Thank you
means...
so much. That'll help.
Yeah, that means set, and this means long.
Okay.
Bayis Hey, Shar Aleph. House 5, let's give you the address. House number 5, gate 1.
Oh, interesting.
That's how the sections are divided up, like chapter.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah. So, it'd be interesting to see exactly what the Rashba says there, and what decrees do not apply. I wonder if that means Bishulakum, Chalavakum, Pasakum,
Yeah.
you know. Certainly can't intermarry with them, a Jew can't marry them.
It's not going to be.
But any decrees that are not biblical, that are rabbinic, I don't know if it's all the decrees, but that's what he says. Says when they made a decree.
Does he say the Rabbanan there?
Well, he said, yeah, Gazru, whatever they decreed.
Whatever. Oh, interesting.
How does he put it? Yeah, sure. The decrees that the Chachamim decreed with regards to Goyim only apply to a guy that's Ovid Avodah Zarah. But if we know him not to be Ovid Avodah Zarah, even though he's not a Ger Toshav,
Right. So that's my thing basically. I really need to read that then.
yeah. Bidvarim shivdilu ben goy Ovid Avodah Zarah legoy stam. Okay, so amongst the things when they make a distinction between an idolatrous goy and a plain old simple goy. Yesh nistapku, there are those that are in doubt. Ima kavana, if the intention here is shebnei kol oisa uma einam oivdim avodah zarah. This distinction that we just made from the Rashba, so within that itself, some people have the following doubt. Does it mean that this person needs to be a member of an entire nation that we know to be such?
Oh. Interesting.
But if the entire nation is idolatrous, it's insufficient the fact that I know that this individual is an exception to his nation and he categorically does not worship anything other than Hashem. That may not be good enough.
Well, then can an individual come out? I think.
In the times when we can have him as a Ger Toshav, yes. But as long as he can't become a Ger Toshav, and no Beis Din will be makabel his acceptance, so then since he's a member of this and this nation, which that nation categorically is Oiv Avodah Zarah, the individual is stuck.
Going back to
Or even if they all worship Avodah Zarah, but we know that this individual, this one person for this nation is an exception. The entire nation, 1 million people, are idolaters, but we know this guy isn't. Then he would be considered like...
Really?
Yeah, that's the... Shein Oived Avodah Zarah. So that's the question.
What are they bringing for those?
Oh, who discusses this? The Kesef Mishnah and the Rambam in Macholas Asuris over there in 11.8.
The Kesef Mishnah there?
Yeah. The Kesef Mishnah, I want to pass the Rambam up there. Yeah. The small set, to your left, yes. The book of, yes, that's right. That's the way to do it. This is what we were saying, that wherever they say that the wine is forbidden, if he was, if the akum, whatever, yeah, it's forbidden for the Jew to derive benefit, and if it does not worship Avodah Zarah, so it's only forbidden to drink. And whenever it says akum stam, he's over Avodah Zarah. Okay.
Get a set with the Kesef Mishnah.
Okay, this Kesef Mishnah goes into the whole thing over here about the Ger Toshav. Yeah, because the previous halacha, 11.7, says Ger Toshav, and then the Rambam again defines it, which means he accepted upon himself the 7 mitzvahs, as we explained. Okay. Okay, yes, so it's the Kesef Mishnah who goes into this discussion. He presents the two ways of looking at it. One, that it's got to be that the entire nation is known not to be idolatrous, and it's insufficient that an individual is okay if he comes from a nation that's not. Yeah? Look at this. Yeah, it has to be from a nation that doesn't worship Avodah Zarah. But if he's from a religion that does worship Avodah Zarah, even though this guy accepted upon himself not to worship Avodah Zarah, he still did not go out of the category of being from amongst those that are idolatrous. Until he accepts the 7 commandments, then he becomes a complete Ger Toshav. He's got to become a Ger Toshav Gomer.
Okay, well, okay.
Which is interesting how he defines a Ger Toshav Gomer.
Yeah, he's defining it as if...
as all 7.
Not just all 7, but there's not a Ger Toshav Gomor today. So if he's saying Gertesh of Gamor, then what is that?
Right. So in other words, he's saying that if he's not a Gertesh of Gomer, which he can't be,
That's what I would think.
therefore he's saying that then his wine is considered like from an idolatrous
So
wine.
I'm still Catholic.
Right. That's what he's saying. That's one way. And he's trying to put that into the words of the Rambam. He's saying that's the way the reading of the Rambam would go. When he says in any akum that's not over the Avodah Zarah.
Is he talking about the Yovel because of the?
No. One second. For example, the Yishmaelim,
Yeah.
meaning only in such a way that he's from a nation that don't worship Avodah Zarah.
Right. Because the Rambam brings on Yishmaelim, and then in other places the Rambam says that if you convert to.
So even if he didn't accept, even if this individual did not personally accept it, but if he's from a nation that's not Oivdei Avodah Zarah, then we accept him.
Because what you're accepting the base then of that nation, maybe.
Not even based. No, just that we say that this nation, this is their belief, this is what their religion is. So therefore, we don't go by every individual.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is you're not obligated. You're not able to execute anything that a based in could execute. Therefore, you're handing that off to a nation that can. I think that's what it's.
Okay, so that's the first way the Kesef Mishnah wants to present it.
Yeah.
That according to the Rambam, it goes by the nation, not by the individual, and the individual's personal beliefs are irrelevant. If he comes from a nation that is idolatrous, he's idolatrous unless he can really become a Gertesh of Gomor. Okay. Or alternatively, the other way to look at it is.
And he's quoting this.
This is the Kesef Mishnah suggesting another way that any. Well, it says akum, whatever, but any goy, that we know that he personally does not worship Avodah Zarah, even though the nation that he's from does, and he didn't even accept formally not to worship Avodah Zarah, and he's not even keeping the other mitzvahs, and he didn't accept them. We just happen to know that this individual does not worship Avodah Zarah. Then his wine would be permissible. And that which the Rambam writes, Gerteshev, that accepted upon himself the 7 mitzvahs, to let us know that even though his wine is also to drink, but it doesn't mean to say that it's mutar.
So I guess if Mishnah is saying that they're wrong.
Yeah, he's suggesting both ways.
He's also implying that the Rambam's meaning something different.
Well, he's presenting both ways. He's presenting 2 opposite ways of reading the Rambam. That's all. He's just bringing it up.
What is it?
And he's not saying which way is the correct way.
So he's saying the first way is that it's forbidden entirely, and the second way that it's okay for benefit? Is that
Yeah.
what it's... So the Jew
No,
would not-
because the Rambam says
Yeah.
that it's only forbidden entirely if the guy is an Oived Avodah Zarah. But if he's not, then it's forbidden for the Jew to drink,
Right.
but not to derive benefit. So now the question that the Kesef Mishnah is trying to figure out is, does the Rambam, when he talks about this individual, does he mean an individual regardless of his nation affiliation, of his what do you call it, his nationality, or does the nationality play the role? So he says there's 2 ways to read into the Rambam there. That it's either the nationality, we don't care about what he does or doesn't do, or there's no, his nationality doesn't have anything to do with it. If we know him to not be an Oived Avodah Zarah, then...
It seems like it comes down to based in.
Why is that?
And I'm not talking about just Jewish based in. I'm also talking about B'nai Noach based in. Do you let the non-Jewish nations based in act out on that non-Jew? And in other words, you're saying B'nai Noach got that
What you're saying that the mitzvah of dinim?
Yes.
Okay.
And so Yisrael would say, okay, that nation has based in. They're fulfilling the mitzvah of based in. So you're going to let that non-Jew be under the yoke of that based in or whatever.
Yeah.
And therefore I can accept you. But because
James' argument is like this. Mitzvah number 7 of Shav Mitzvahs B'nai Noach is dinim. Have a court system. Okay? So, if your nation, country you live in, where you come from, if they are keeping that law of dinim, that means that you are under that jurisdiction, And if you break any of their laws, you're doing something which is illegal and you will be punished.
And it's kosher because.
And therefore, if they have a law that they're upholding the other 6, they don't allow Avodah Zarah. So therefore, you personally are considered one who's not an idolater because it's illegal for you to do Avodah Zarah because your court system doesn't allow it.
But is that what the Rambam and the Gesher Mishnah is talking about?
Not exactly, but that's how James wants
yeah, that's
to
what I'm
extend
I'm
it.
trying to figure
Okay.
out the whole.
That's not, the Kesef Mishnah does not mention anything about
Correct.
based in
Yeah.
at all.
I'm just trying to
It's
figure
more
out.
the custom of the nation, which might be
So James
similar
wants to
it
put that
based
into
it.
the dinim
Yeah.
and say that's why you can have a kosher guy.
Yeah.
What's the kosher guy? The one who belongs to a nationality that is fulfilling dinim.
And the reason why I say that too is because the Rambam, he lived in an Arab nation, a Muslim nation or whatever, that it would have been illegal to have a Avodah Zarah or whatever. And so it seems like the Rambam would be shy to this whole idea. And so I'm thinking that's why he actually says Yishmaelim particularly, because I'm wondering if the Rambam's kind of shy to this first opinion maybe rather than the second. And that also could be why the Ravid in the Sarabia brings in like, oh, hold on a second, why is the Rambam just glossing over the Ger Toshav Bisman Azeh business? And that could be why the Ravid brings in the whole Ger Toshav the Ger Toshav of today type thing. So it's very interesting. So what is a Yisrael to do?
See, that's the problem because as long as we don't have a clear psak halacha
Yeah.
in Shulchan Aruch or in the Poskim,
Yeah. This is what it comes down to. I told Rabbi Katz this when he was here. I was like, it's going to come down to base then. It's going to come down. And see, his whole thing is the Lavdavka stuff. His whole thing is it's a level. But then you're going to have people that say it's not a level. It's that actually you have to have a physical base then.
that's the issue. That's the problem. Practically speaking, in such cases, the approach that we would have to take, as far as I understand, would be we'd always have to be machmir. The Jewish community would always have to be strict and take the strict opinion, not necessarily because that's what we're, ruling is but just because we don't have a ruling, and that's one approach. Another one is if you do have a posek, for example, that article from Rabban Soloveitchik, so that has a lot of practical applications, which he clearly, and that's a psak. So if someone is to accept him as a posek, which he definitely was, and they want to go by that, fine. And if you're going to find something similar in Reb Moshe Feinstein, so there you have it. If today you would have someone like Reb Zalman Nehemiah Goldberg, who's going to give a psak, he does back the divine code, but if he would give a psak, so again, then that would be something to rely on. But otherwise, you're not going to find these halachas, generally speaking, in Shulchan Aruch. You may find a detail here and there, but otherwise you won't find clarity as far as what's the definition of the guy that Chazal talk about all the time. Is it this one or is it that one? It remains machlekes rishonim. That's the problem. And you can't just be a somebody or an anybody to make such a ruling. It's got to be someone who's...
The Shulchan Aruch does talk about certain differences, and like we read about Shabbos.
Well, is it clear enough?
So I guess Yisrael could say, well, it's not clear enough for me. Is it like a subjective thing then?
Is it clear enough that we're... I know that that's the argument that, David Katz wants to make. That it's very clear, and in halacha there's two types of goyim when it comes to Shabbos, no question about it.
Well, I guess no. I want to clarify because it just real quick. I think you might misunderstand me. I think it is clear in the Shulchan Aruch, but for a Yisrael to say, the Yisrael has to say, it's subjective for him. For instance, I could tell you night and day, like I don't commit avodah zarah. I'm not an Oved Avodah Zarah, and no matter how much I could tell somebody, a Yisrael could say, well, you haven't convinced me enough.
So what does
it's within his power.
What does Hilchos Shabbos say about how to identify?
That's my point.
Does Shulchan Aruch identify?
It talks about accepted, the non-Jew who's accepted the seven. So that's the thing.
Accepted by whom?
Exactly, that's my point.
So
that's
right.
yeah.
So then again, there's so even if that part's clear, but to get to that part is not
exactly.
clear.
That's
So it becomes theoretically clear.
Yeah, that's my thing. It's all about based in. It's like what is based in, what is Kabbalah Sheva Mitzvahs based in, basically.
Okay, so those are the two ways of looking at it.
And now you understand where Rabbi Katz he makes the conclusions he makes about the Shabbos goy, because if you don't have a beis din, then you are a goy. You can never come out of idolatry. You're always going to be the cat.
And therefore, practically speaking, there is no difference for Shabbos, for the Jew, between one goy and another.
That would make sense, yeah.
But that's not what David Katz says.
Because it's about his beis din.
Right, but that's not the approach David Katz takes.
He takes a Lavdavka approach. It's not the beis din. The three Haverim is not literal. That's what I'm saying. That's my point. And he's saying there's two sides. See, this is you get. It really comes down to that: is the beis din Lavdavka, or is beis din have to be practical and literal, like a literal beis din? And so that's where he's making those conclusions about a divine code. He says that a non-Jew is treated as like he's the akum, he's the idolater.
Rabbi Katz is very enthusiastic. He's trying to, be like Mashiach now. Let's build the temple. Let's have the Yovel year. Let's do everything right now. That seems to be what he's saying.
No. You got to understand.
Because what he's talking about would not have made sense 50 years ago.
Rabbi Katz, though, his logic is correct, though. Even by going through this, he's not inferring anything. He's not doing anything weird. He's literally just quoting basically what the Mishnah Torah, the Kesef Mishnah is saying. The Kesef Mishnah, the Divine Code is taking this stringent approach of that there has to be a beis din, and because there's no beis din for Ger Toshab today, then you're shaykh to whatever nation you are. So if your nation's an idolatrous nation, you're considered an idolater even if you personally reject it. You see?
Right. So there's no way. So if a person out of a non-idolatrous nation like Saudi Arabia decided to become a Ger Toshav, he could have some argument for it. But if he's in another country like India, he would not be allowed to become like a Ger Toshav. Is that what you're saying?
That's what the Rambam's saying. That's
right.
Why, that's why the Rambam literally says Yishmael. Right.
Sure. Okay. But I'm not sure how that fits in any of the rest. But okay.
Let's go.
Yeah.
Yesh shenosan klal. Then there's an opinion which gives a rule. Lodas beized dvarm niskavnu al ha'umois ha'kedumois. Shloi hoyu geduris bedarke adosois. Some say, okay, let's try to figure out, what do Chazal mean? When they made a decree, so we just made an argument that it doesn't apply to every goy. A stam goy it doesn't apply to, only to an idolatrous goy. So how are we supposed to know when the decree does and doesn't apply, to whom it applies or not? So he says, it goes like this. Go back to the ancient nations that were not abiding by the civil laws, and they were constantly idolatrous. And when does it apply to all the nations? So you say this is how to tell. Kol shedivreihem, whenever Chazal made a decree, and the reason for their decree, we're not talking about something biblical, it's not a choik. Whenever Chazal made a decree, there's a reason for it. And they tell us the reason. So if they made a decree, L'inyan chashash Isra Shabbos, the Isra Macholos u'Mishtois. If they made a decree out of concern of some prohibition of desecration of breaking Shabbos, or there is a concern of a prohibition of eating something which is forbidden, or having banquets, which are forbidden. Or they made a decree because they're concerned with intermarriage. If those are the reasons for their decrees, then then there's no distinction, and all the nations are the same, whether they're idolatrous or whether they categorically keep the Sheva mitzvahs religiously. No difference.
That is a concern. So marriage. What were some of the other ones?
Breaking Shabbos, or eating forbidden food.
Oh, yeah, that makes sense.
But as opposed to those decrees that the Chachamim made because the Goyim are suspected of Avodah Zarah, or of murder, or the like, then we say those were only said about the earlier nations that were corrupt and uncivil. So for example, there are probably better examples, but I'm going to give an example that comes to mind. Okay. There is a decree, and that is a Jew is not allowed to get a haircut from a goy in private. If it's not out in the marketplace in the open, but to go into his shop behind a locked door or a curtain or something, not allowed. Why not?
Might kill you.
One of the reasons might kill you. Well, that was way back then. I don't think that in the United States of America there is a problem to be concerned to go to any barber and think he might kill you. Yeah. Even if it would be, let's say, we have many here, Arabs.
Yeah.
The law doesn't allow for it. So we don't have to be concerned that that particular Arab might decide. We don't know that he's an anti-Semitic Arab. We don't know where he stands. And we don't... It's the whole situation is different. So if we're concerned that there's Avodah Zarah involved, we say, who worships Avodah Zarah today in the United States of America?
Even if you're concerned personally that person might have
there's no more concern.
Okay.
We don't have to be worried about that. We're talking about what did the Chachamim decree. So if it's Avodah Zarah, or if it's murder, or the like, then it doesn't apply. But if it's something which has to do with Shabbos or Kashrus...
Interesting. So things that are shak to the Sheva mitzvahs, it seems like maybe.
Right. If they're Sheva mitzvahs related, and therefore we assume that they're keeping the Sheva mitzvahs, then even though they made a decree that I can't let a guy do this, that only applied way back when to the ancient uncivil, un-Sheva mitzvah.
Yeah, very good.
The non-kosher guy. But today, so in other words, if the concern is marriage, intermarriage, so I can't marry even the most kosher of the goyim.
Yeah, that's an issue.
Right.
Because the world's going to...
And that is the reason why they decreed, by the way, the prohibition against eating pas nachri, bread baked by a non-Jew, that I know that the ingredients are kosher, and I know that the oven is kosher. Cooked food. Someone cooked the food in my home, in my pots.
Okay.
The only problem is that the non-Jew lit the fire, the non-Jew did everything from beginning to end, I can't eat it.
Because he's doing things the way his nation, he only knows...
Because it's a matter of becoming intimately friendly and close with them, and we have to have certain borders between a Jew and a non-Jew for one simple reason. Yeah. Not because I don't want the Gosnells with their corrupt Western American, Indiana... No, it's not because I'm necessarily afraid of your philosophy or whatever. Very, very simple. But my son cannot marry your daughter. Right. My daughter can't marry your son.
But it's not so much... is it intimacy or is it ignorance?
We can't become intimately friendly.
Why?
Because that can very naturally lead to intermarriage. If I become best friends with you, and then our kids become not only playmates, but they grow up together, so that could be very natural for them to want to get married. Chas v'shalom. So in other words, we can be friends, but there has to be some type of a border. Now, who's to make up the borders? The Chachamim made it up. They said, can you have him over? They didn't say not. Okay. Can we have a few beers together? They didn't say not. Okay. can we smoke cigars together? They didn't say not. Can I invite you over for a meal? Yes, I can. So what can't I do? So I said, here's the stuff we're saying you can't do. So bishul akum, but if I cook the food or if I make anything, if I just turn on the fire, now that's good. Why? Because I did something. There's some reminder to tell me that you got to keep that distance so that we don't intermarry. That's it.
So intermarriage, Shabbos, and food is some of the big three things.
Right. Well, right. That's correct.
That's interesting.
And the one who takes this approach is the Meiri in Avodah Zarah 26a.
Oh, the Meiri explains it that way.
Right.
I think I read that. I think that might actually be in Soloveitchik's work.
Okay.
And it's the Meiri on which?
Avodah Zarah
On
26a.
Avodah Zarah 26. Interesting. So in goodness and kind deeds, the Sheva Mitzvah, sorry, but this is throwing a huge amount at me. So you can treat. So that's probably the whole Soloveitchik thing about treating somebody with goodness and kind deeds.
Yeah.
It's you're not treating them like a Yisrael.
Well,
Because even in mitzvah hiyuso, it doesn't go to the full extent of a Yisrael.
right.
So it's like connect. Okay.
Yeah, but I think this is actually the approach of Reb Baron Soloveitchik. That's correct.
That's very interesting.
I just noticed that apparently the live stream only goes on for 1 hour now. So we're coming up on the second.
How many more minutes?
Just a couple more minutes.
Okay.
I mean, I can start it up
No,
again.
I want to get up to here. So we have
Okay.
2 more paragraphs to do. Let's see if I can do
Yes.
it. Yisrael, a Jew, afal pisha heimir, even though he, words exchanged, but what was the words we saw over here? He converted out of the Jewish religion. He, whatever, Vafilu ger shechazer l'suroi, and even a convert, a ger tzedek, who unfortunately went back to his old ways. Can't, right? Once a Jew, always a Jew. So he went through a proper conversion, and now he's going back. Einoi nasid goy al yidei kach, does not become a goy by this. So a Jew who denounces their Judaism, and he chas v'sholem actually gets baptized, and the whole works. Or a non-Jew that converted and became a Jew, and he goes back, they are still considered Jewish. He's not a goy. She Yisrael afa pishachato Yisrael who, for as the Talmud states that a Yisrael, a Jew, even though he sinned, he's still a Jew. He's a Jewish sinner, but he's a Jew. It's just that as far as specific things, so the Chachamim gave him the legal status of a goy. So sometimes they'll say he's like a goy, but it only means as far as that halach is concerned.
I can't bring a burnt offering. He's like Lenofri or something.
He can't eat from the Korban Pesach. Right, things like that. Nechleku amayroim bibnei aseres hashvatim shenit'amu bein hanachrim. There's an argument amongst the Amayroim, the Talmudic rabbis, about the 10 lost tribes, that they got mixed into the nations of the world. They're originally 100% Jewish, but they got mixed in amongst the Nachrim. Himein bichlal Yisrael, are they included as Jews? And therefore there is the laws of mamzerus, of possible bastards amongst them. Because they weren't careful and they married women that were not allowed to them. And if they'd be Jews, those offsprings are considered mamzerim. Or we say no, that they're actually goyim because they intermarried so much, they came mixed into the other nations, so therefore they're considered like absolute goyim, which has a redeeming factor, and that is that their offsprings are not mamzerim. Shenemar, because there's a verse in Hosea which says, "Ba'Hashem bogdu," they rebelled against Hashem, "Kivonim zorim yuladu," because they gave birth to foreign children. So based on that verse, they say that they're like goyim, and they're not mamzerim. Because Rishonim l'dei acharena, and so the Rishonim write that according to the second opinion that they're like goyim, shebeis and sheboisei hador, that it was the Beis Din, the Jewish Beis Din of that generation, when the 10 lost tribes got lost. Asum kegoyim gemurim. They decreed and they made them be like absolute goyim, not just for certain halachas, but they really made them like goyim. Shaloi le'esim bichlal dina yisrael klal, and therefore they're not considered like Jews when it comes to any laws.
Just like they are goyim.
Yeah,